Hi, Simon. What was your first computer?
When I was 12 or 13 years old. It was a Commodore C46.
Of course. And what you did with that? Playing games?
Yes, and basic programming as well.
So, what was first? Programming or games?
Games, for sure.
Okay, which games?
California games, winter games, summer games, Hero.
So, a joystick destroyer?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. And why you started basic?
Because it was there. So,
yeah, sure. But do you have an iPhone? Do you have iPhone?
No, I have an Android.
Ah, okay. I was told that in Switzerland, Androids are very rare.
No, I would say it's more Android now.
Okay.
But in the beginning, we had a lot of iPhones.
Okay.
But maybe it's half-half or a bit more Android. It depends on what people want to spend for their phone.
Okay. So, and you program in Kotlin?
Yes, from time to time, yes.
Okay. So this was a question, so because it's there. So you say, okay, basic is there, so you started programming. But I mean, we have a lot of things which is there, but we don't do it. So were you fascinated by the programming, or what was the idea?
No, it was always interesting to me. And later on, we had some IT courses, and we played volleyball in school. And so there was an application for entering the results of the games and to calculate the rank list at the end. Mm-hmm. And I was improving this software on C64.
You played volleyball, so was it in Rapperswil?
No, it was in where I live.
Okay, because in Rapperswil, this is like IT university, and it is beautiful. It is more like, vacation site, not like a school. So I assumed you studied at Rapperswil.
No. But I was there at the workshop days as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Already.
So still, how you got the idea that on your C64 is basic and you can do something useful with it?
I was reading a book. These days we had books. Yeah. I don't know if you remember, there was the Marktentechnik Verlag in Germany.
Yes, but this was not a nice one, right?
No, but it was okay. And we can go to the... These days we didn't have the computer stores. You had like radio and television stores where you could buy computers, and there you could buy also the books. Mm-hmm. So once I bought a book and start reading and was trying out what I could do on the C64.
And why you bought the book? Because you were bored with gaming?
No, because I was interested in how things work.
Okay. Now I got.
Enter something in the computer or use the joystick to move the character. Okay. And so I want to learn how this works.
Yeah, this is an explanation I'm happy with, because, just starting programming, no one does that. So it's always, and why you do this is the most interesting. Some people saying, they would like to change the games or program the games, but a nice explanation is as well, you wanted to find out how the thing is working. How quickly you learned BASIC, or what you did with BASIC back then?
Not a lot, because later on I left school and I did something completely different.
But back then, so a few 12-year-olds,
Yeah, as I said, the volleyball tournament application, it was maintenance. The first thing that I really did was maintenance already. Okay. Because it was someone else who wrote the application, but it has some bugs and it didn't print the ranking list very well. Okay. So that was something that I improved.
This was in BASIC?
That was in BASIC.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then I got you. And this was your first and last application, right? In BASIC.
On BASIC, exactly.
Yeah, okay, I got you now. And so what was the next step? So you liked the experience with BASIC? Were you hooked into programming, or you say, okay, this was terrible volleyball experience and just stop it?
No, later on I'm also in a track and field club. And
what is this? What's track?
Track and field.
What is that?
Like long jump and running and stuff like that. So if you like Olympics, sports like what we have, shot put and long jump, high jump, stuff like that. Running 100 meters, stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
And there we had the same problem. We had to enter results. And so I started these days with Access and Visual Basic.
Of course. Uh-huh.
because it was very easy to create a form, to create a database. And I think that was the second application that I wrote.
But this was more fun, sounds like it.
This was absolutely more fun, yes. Visual Basic was not so nice, but what I liked was Access at all, because it was very easy to create a form, to create a database. But all the calculation has to be done in Visual Basic, and it was hard to find out in Access where to put the code that it actually runs. That was, I think, the biggest problem these days.
An interesting story. I think around 2003, we built an enterprise system for power plants. And the business department created something with Microsoft Access, the database. And they loved the database and they hated our stuff. Because they always thought, what we built is way better what you are building with Java right now, right? But the problem was everything was in memory. This was a single user system what they built, It is a lot harder to build something which is distributed, but they always came back saying, no, our system is better. Just do the same, with Java. I was like, but this is a completely different story. You cannot do the same, This was the Access was it. I think the Access. Microsoft Access destroyed a lot of projects, I think, because of that, It was very easy to add stuff, and you couldn't get, the understanding that if you distribute the thing and build a larger system, it will behave differently, right?
Yeah, it was incredible. I was once in a project for a Swiss government, and I was on a meeting where they discussed how many Access applications they have. It was just a department of the government, but they had a few hundred Access applications that were still maintained by some business people most of the time.
Which is actually a very good news, right? That the business people are able to maintain something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So you build a thing with Access, and what then? So first, did you participate in Olympics?
No, I didn't.
Okay,
it was just for fun. I think I was more in the club for the administrative stuff. So I was not very, very good in sports. I was not the best in the club. So I started to build such applications to help with the organization of these events. So we are organizing events for YAUS every year for the kids.
How it's called? YAUS?
Yeah, for the kids.
Okay.
And we have 4 clubs that are participating every year. We have
sports club, right? Sports club?
Sports clubs.
Okay.
Yeah. We have more than 100 kids that are coming, and so I'm still working on the same application. Currently, it's written in Spring and Spring MVC, but it's still the same application. So I'm maintaining it, let's say, for 30 years now, more or less.
Cool. So this was a nice transition from Visual Basic to Spring, right? Yeah,
no, that's great, because I once also implemented in Eclipse RCP when this was hype. 2004 or something like that.
How is your experience with that? Because I hated the whole RCP stuff.
Me too, but I did a lot with it because I was working for Swiss Railways. And Swiss Railways was implementing their whole disposition system. So to track the trains, to enter the train, the tables, the timetables and stuff. And also later on I was working for a wholesale company, and all the ERP system was written in Eclipse RCP.
Okay. Cool story. I don't know. Have you participated in a keynote at the railway systems where I gave the keynote? You attended this?
Yeah, I think, because I'm also there more or less every year. And
this was in the middle of nowhere. This was in the middle of nowhere. They invited me to talk about, modern enterprise development. And I delivered a keynote. And what I didn't know, they use the IBM WebSphere large system, not the Open Liberty, the bloated one. And what I did in the presentation, I used, I think, GlassFish and Whitefly, and in my way showed how productive everything can be. And I say, okay, the bloated WebSphere, no one uses that, and so forth. And after the keynote, they came to me and said, your speech was really disturbing, because now they have a real problem. Everyone is asking what the guy did, and they will never invite me again. Because this was a huge mess what I left. So okay, sorry, you asked me what I'm doing, so I showed you what I'm doing, right? Yeah. So this was a nice place in Switzerland, but middle nowhere, I remember. It was really hard to get into. I had to go through Zurich, then Bern, I think, and then still with the train a piece, right? So this was on a lake or somewhere. This was a beautiful place, but it was crazy to get there.
Yes, Swiss Railways has a training center there.
Okay.
So they do training, and this is just in the middle of nowhere. But it's very close to where I live.
Ah, okay. Sorry. It was beautiful, beautiful place, but really hard to get there. What was the name of the location? You know, still what is it?
It's called Montelier.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Yeah. So, cool. So, your hobby was then maintaining, the sports club with various technologies. I would say, poor sports club. What I imagine is whatever was on the horizon, you rewrote the application, right?
Yeah. It's
so the question to you: how many events were cancelled because of your inventions?
None.
Oh, okay. So it was cool.
Because I always had to fall back to the previous version.
With Visual Basic.
So, yeah.
Or the previous version, not always to Visual Basic, rather than was the Visual Basic your fallback, or one prior to what you did right now?
No. The Visual Basic was the first. When we started with it, with the events, we were about 12 people that were calculating the results by hand. So we had huge tables where we checked the results and calculated the points. And after that, I was alone. So I'm doing the whole event. All the calculation is now only me.
Cool.
But for the first event, I had the team at my side. So if my application wouldn't work, they would help me to calculate the points.
Yeah, cool.
And from there, I think every year we didn't have a problem. We have around 4 events every year, and this runs smoothly because the good thing is I know the business case very well. Mm-hmm. So even it happens something with the application, it's very easy to fix.
Yeah, cool. So you wrote the Visual Basic application, and then was what I'm interested in, what you did professionally. So you studied computer science, or you said you left the school. So what you did then?
No, I was working for Swiss Railways. I didn't study computer science for my first job.
Okay.
So I started with Swiss Railways, and then 1995 I had to the chance to change to the IT department of Swiss Railways. And then I was going to the university and did my computer science degree. Mm-hmm. And when I started in IT department, I started with COBOL on mainframe, IBM mainframe. Mm-hmm. And I think the first 5 years I was working on finance systems for Swiss Railways and project planning applications written on IBM mainframe with COBOL, some with DB2, and some with hierarchical databases.
IMS, right?
IMS, exactly.
A question to you is what we Java developers can learn from COBOL. Is there something cool, interesting, or nice which can actually learn, or is all old stuff which you should as quickly as possible forget?
The programming language COBOL is very limited, so you can't do very much with it. So when it comes, for example, to sorting or searching, COBOL is too slow. So what we had a lot of assembler applications or assembler utilities that we were calling from COBOL code to do a search or to do a sort, for example. But what was cool on the mainframe, and this is very actual already, is we had serverless these days, So we were deploying just the COBOL program. And what we didn't have to care is about, for example, security. So if a user logs in on a mainframe system, the login information or the user information is transported all the way down to the database. So you don't have, for example, if you want to create a program that accesses a database, you don't have to deal with username and password. Because what you do, you grant the program to the database, not a user. So if the user logs in, he's logged in. We know on the database side the username, for example, and also the access that the user has to the database and the data. And so it's very easy to build applications on host systems. And the second thing that's very nice is that you have like a virtualization. the operating system is called multiple virtual storage, and it has the same ID as Docker today. You know, you have a full isolation of the running program to the underlying operating system. So it was not called container, it was called jobs, but the ID and I think also parts of the implementation are exactly the same that we have today with Docker. Yep. So we were the times ahead. I have less experience with COBOL. I worked together with AS400. This was the host system. I was always the Java guy, but I really like to listen to the core host developers and see whether I can learn from them. And they had also DB2, and the program was RPG, or RPG and PL1, I think. I forgot both, but in this particular case, I think it was RPG. And what they told me, what they love about the host is that the database and the business logic are in the same memory. So there is nothing can get inconsistent because everything is a monolith. So they reuse it, the idea as much as possible, and they can serve with one box incredible amount of load. So actually, there was dispatching system for entire world on one machine. So it was extremely efficient. And this is what I also learned, we don't have to distribute all the stuff to be scalable. Sometimes it is better, to reverse the patterns we have right now and run as much as possible in one process. It's also a strategy for some cases. So this is what I learned from the guys back then. So interesting part. So I never knew that you actually worked for railways. When was it roughly? It was it was a very long time, from 1995 to 2007. Okay, then, okay, cool. So, and which technologies you used at railway and Swiss Railways? Yeah, first, as I said, COBOL DB2, and then in year 2000, or I helped to solve the year 2000 problem for Swiss Railway. And then after that, I started as a Java developer. Cool. So I used, in the first project, we used WebSphere, as you said. Yeah. With TopLink. We started very early with TopLink because it was acquired by WebGain in 2001, I think. Yeah. And we had EJBs on WebSphere and EJB-remoting because the client we were building was written in Swing. So the first UI application that I did was with Swing. And that was for also for the train disposition. And then I moved to the first online ticketing project at Swiss Railways. So when we created a web shop to buy tickets, I think we were one of the first railways in Europe that was creating that. So it was the first version with you were printing your ticket at home with like a code on it and all the information. And this was also on WebSphere with Oracle databases. We had struts in the front end. And we had a lot of interfaces using not ActiveMQ, WebSphere MQ, or MQ series was its name these days. And Oracle database. And we had a WebSphere cluster. You know why Swiss Railways was using WebSphere? No. Because it was one of the companies that IBM did the transition from mainframe systems to WebSphere. Okay. So we also had the idea that also the COBOL programmers can move to Java. So we had like training from COBOL to Java to move the knowledge that they had, the business knowledge from the old system to the new. And it worked? There's no more COBOL at Swiss Railways? No, I think they have some. Okay. In the cargo systems, there must be some COBOL programs that are still there, but they're trying to replace it with Apache Kafka, I think. Okay, cool. That was the latest update that I get from them. Okay, cool. So, so this was your journey in 2007. You still use WebSphere struts and all the stuff, EJBs and TopLink? No, in 2000, after this online ticketing project, I moved to the disposition project, and there we used Eclipse RCP, but still WebSphere. Okay. But we had to use WebSphere because Swiss Railways had a large WebSphere installation. But then we started using Spring. So what we did during development, we started also the backend inside the Eclipse RCP application. And moving to production, we just switched the configuration. So the remoting was then moved from like in-memory remoting to an EJB-remoting that we had. So we had kind of a single EJB that did all the remoting. The EJB just implemented the method.
So you use Spring on WebSphere?
Yes, exactly.
So for me, back then, this was hell on earth. Spring on WebSphere. So you got, two frameworks, very similar, and you get twice the complexity, right?
Yeah, but the point was development speed.
Okay.
These days, starting WebSphere took 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you had to restart the application server, you had to wait 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was not very nice. And the other problem was WebSphere. I mean, the computers that we had in these days were not so fast and didn't have so much memory that we have today.
Oh, okay.
And so installing a whole WebSphere on the developer machine was incredible. Yeah. Because you started it and it used all the memory that you had. So
this is what
not fun to develop.
This is what I told them at the keynote. That this is ridiculous to have something like this, and then they were not very happy. So what I imagine, I know that because they afterwards they talk with me. And it's like the next day we should coordinate. It's like, but I cannot tell you, that I'm going your way if I'm not doing this. So this was actually interesting, funny experience. Okay, cool. So you did. What interests me, you did Swing and then Eclipse RCP.
Yeah.
So what was your opinion about this transition? So I never understood, the idea how it can be better with Eclipse as this SWT. It was terrible, right?
Yeah, but the point was performance, an SWT application was much faster than Swing these days.
That's true.
And because we had to do, with Eclipse RCP, we had to do the timetables that they use, the lines that go down and stuff. And this had quite high performance requirements. And the point was, we were hoping that this Eclipse RCP stuff gives us like a frame. There was the Swing application framework, but it moved away.
Yeah.
And Eclipse RCP gave us like a template for our application.
Yeah.
And that was something nice in the beginning, but the problem was not really SWT. The problem was OSGI.
Yeah.
So getting all the plugin stuff right and like the class loader issues that we had and stuff like that. And once our UI developer, we had a dedicated UI developer, and after 1 or 2 years, he said, "Hey guys, now I know how to use Eclipse RCP. Let's start over again."
Yeah.
And that was mainly the problem. It was very complex to use.
Yeah. Okay, I get you. So because of speed, I get you. So you had high performance requirements. So you said, okay, then we use SWT. Regardless, how easy or nice it is, we have to use it to be performant. And then I get you. So my problem back then was at conferences, everyone talked how nice SWT, JFace, and Eclipse is. And they use Eclipse RCP to modularize applications. And then everything becomes, faster and easier. And I say, no, this is what I cannot believe, no, right? This is exactly like we would talk right now. If you use, GraalVM, everything is nice because you can faster build applications. No. You have to think more, how to natively compile the thing. But at the end, it is very small. So this is the trade-off. So, okay, got you. Perfect. So, you did a nice mix of Java EE and Spring because you were not able to launch your production environment on the local machines.
Exactly.
So, which is interesting itself, right? This is almost like Angular development these days, right? So you cannot, Okay, cool. So then you quit. So this was your experience at the Swiss Railways?
Yeah. At the end, I was kind of what did we tell it? We had a methodology, technology tools department where I was the head of it. So we tried to help other teams to get up to speed, to use the right tools.
Okay.
And that was the transition to Spring. Not to Spring Boot, but to Spring and also GlassFish. Maybe it was inspired by your talk because Swiss Railways moved also to GlassFish. So they had like a dual platform strategy with WebSphere for the mission critical systems And for the small, fast systems, they use GlassFish.
Okay, so were they happy with the GlassFish experience back then?
Yeah, absolutely. It was much faster. Every developer wanted to use GlassFish. No one wanted to go back to the WebSphere platform.
This is what they knew. I thought, my talk was completely destructive, and but this was something good, which happened after my talk. Yeah. So
you know, Swiss Railways has a very strong operations team, or had a very strong operations team, and they want to rely on WebSphere because they had all the knowledge about clustering WebSphere and performance tuning WebSphere and stuff like that. And so that's why they don't want to have a second platform these days.
Cool. So then now I'm happy. So all the years, I was a little unhappy about what I did, but now, okay, cool. Something good happened actually. But this was just GlassFish or still GlassFish and Spring on GlassFish?
No, that was just GlassFish because it was Java E5, and I mean Java E5 with annotations and lightweight development. Also, the possibility to launch the EJB container in a unit test, for example, was nice. And this was just Java E pure without Spring. Okay, cool. So you were ahead of the entire. Okay, this is probably how we met, right? In one point of time, I found you somewhere. And you know how I met you? Or what was your first contact with you? You know this? Yes, I think we met on the workshop days in Zurich.
Yeah.
I was talking about OR mapping, and you had your workshop as well.
Yeah.
At the same day.
Yeah. But
that's probably how we met.
But I think before that, something else happened. I hope I didn't confuse you. You also use you use NetBeans, right?
Yes, or maybe you had this QLB, the query language builder. You remember?
Yeah.
And I was working with you on that. So I had some ideas, and I brought some implementation on your query language builder. Then.
Yeah, and something else. So what I remember is the following: NetBeans. Many people complain that NetBeans doesn't have toString method.
Yeah.
And you build that. And,
yes.
And you see, and then you read this on my blog somehow, and then you contributed the toString method to NetBeans, so you can generate proper toString. Because back then I will never use NetBeans because this was the explanation, right? This was because it is not able to generate toStrings. Like, this is stupid. This is very easy. I mean, I don't have a time right now, but it is really easy to use. And you said, okay, I just do it. And 2 days later, there was a toString method for NetBeans. And I say, look, now we have it. And I think your contribution ended up being up in NetBeans, right?
Yeah, but I completely forget about that.
You see? You see? Yeah. If I hear your name, I always think about a nice experience with toString. This is the only. I was curious to know what. And this is the first time we met, and I don't think I saw you before. So this was the first contact, and then we met at some workshop days or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. Are you still using NetBeans?
No.
IntelliJ.
IntelliJ most of the time.
Yeah.
Because I was using NetBeans I'm teaching at the University in Bern. And we were using NetBeans because it was very easy. So in combination with Maven, you don't have any additional configuration. You just open the Maven project, and that was very good for the students. So no setup, very easy to use. But the industry changed a bit. So I would say at least in Switzerland, most of the Java developers are using IntelliJ. And so we had to use IntelliJ because the students asked us, why can't we use IntelliJ? We are using IntelliJ at the company. And so that's why we moved also at the university.
What you should try it out, I do it right now, is like Visual Studio Code with Java.
I also tried, yes.
It is not as powerful as NetBeans or Visual Studio Code, but it gets there. So I would say 80% is fine. And why I'm using this, because I'm also doing a lot of web stuff. So I have just one thing, But it's really, and they're moving really, really fast, I would say. This is like, Visual Studio Code is like, NetBeans back then. A question to you, what's about Eclipse? Is someone using still Eclipse?
From time to time, I see students that are using Eclipse.
Okay,
still.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why, but some of them are still using it. And
I don't know why. We should cut it off,
No, the problem is the Maven integration is still not good.
Okay, still not good. Because I wanted actually to evaluate Eclipse a bit, because I ignored that since then. NetBeans 5 came out, and since then I dropped completely Eclipse. So I forgot about Eclipse. And now I thought, okay, now it could be nicer, so let's see. But I don't think it is worth, to try it out. But Visual Studio Code uses Eclipse behind the scenes. So actually I'm using kind of Eclipse, because the language server in Visual Studio Code is actually embedded Eclipse.
Yeah. I think that the language support in Eclipse is good. I'm using Eclipse because I'm contributing to dbeaver, the database tool.
How is it called?
dbeaver.
Yeah.
dbeaver.
Yeah.
And I did some contributions lately, and I had to use Eclipse because this is also an Eclipse RCP application.
Okay.
And the language support in Eclipse is good. I mean, if I open some projects in Eclipse, sometimes they give me hints about probable bugs or something that I could do better that IntelliJ didn't find.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I think that this is not bad. I still think that the problem is more on some plugins, like Maven, stuff like that.
What I don't like about IntelliJ is the default key bindings. So what the IntelliJ ships with, the key bindings are incredible. So there are so many shortcuts that forget it, right? And the cool story about NetBeans back then, and a little bit Visual Studio Code, is actually there were just two. You have to learn at the beginning, and then you are set, So and this is, I was several times at the IntelliJ guys at the booth, and I asked them why you are doing this. So why you don't have just two shortcuts? I mean, this works in the other IDEs, and it works perfectly. And they always told me you can remap the bindings. Like, yeah, I could remap them, of course, but then I am the unique snowflake. If I worked with someone together, and they have Eclipse bindings and I have my own bindings, forget it. So we could never work together, right? So this is the only complaint I have with IntelliJ, I have to say. And I have a license, not the IntelliJ license, rather the Toolbox license. So I have everything from them. I like to support them, but the only thing what I don't like is the shortcuts. So
and the IDE is really heavy.
Okay.
It uses a lot of memory.
Mm-hmm.
It generates a lot of metadata. Mm-hmm. If you import Maven POM, for example,
this is not
a lot of stuff.
And the server. So if you add application server, it is absolutely not intuitive. So what they are doing, you have to add the project to the server, not the server to the projects. So I always have to think, before I do this, someone asks me, can you show how to works? Of course. And then I spend, half an hour figuring out how it actually works. And in all other IDs, it's very, very simple. Yeah,
that's my impression as well. When I first had to add, I was working, after I left Swiss Railways, I was working with the JBoss application server.
Actually, what you did after Railways?
After Railways, I had a short gig at a ticket vending machine company.
Okay.
But then we had the financial crisis. It was 2008.
Yeah.
And I decided to start working as a freelancer. Okay. And since then, I'm working as a freelancer.
Oh, cool. And you used JBoss back then?
Yes. Okay. I was also, I did a lot of JBoss performance stuff.
Cool.
Mostly it was not about JBoss. Mostly it was about Hibernate.
Yeah.
And not JBoss.
Oh, so you are the ORM guy. So you focus on object relational mapping?
Yes, I did. I don't like it really. So, it's more like a hate and love.
Yeah, of course.
Connection.
Yeah.
But I'm also teaching ORM mapping at university. So I think I have a big background in that, and so I'm helping people to get better performance out of what they do. But usually, or very often, they maybe don't need ORM mapping.
Yeah. Then I have a perfect topic for the next episode with you, just about ORM.
Yeah.
In 1 hour. ORM in 1 hour, from the beginning to the end. In a few weeks, I will invite you. If you have some time, then we can promote your freelancing, and our listeners would learn about ORM, when to do ORM and when not.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is more into it than you might think. how transactions working, the cloning of objects in memory and one-to-end lazy loading. And so just talk about ORM. This could be a nice episode with you, I guess. After you introduce yourself. So, okay, very good. So you were 1 year with JBoss. You like the experience with JBoss?
Yes, I think JBoss was a nice application server. At the university these days, we were using GlassFish, and I found GlassFish easier to use because JBoss until version, I don't know exactly, 5 probably.
5 was broken. 6, yeah.
6, yes, had a lot of XML files to configure. So you didn't know what configuration goes to which file. So it was very, very hard to find out. So it was JBoss 4. Exactly. And later on, when they moved to Wildfly, it was much better, I think. So because they had just one configuration file, like GlassFish also had these days. And this was much easier to use and to configure and also easier to integrate. Okay. But at the end, JBoss, also the old version, worked very well. Yeah, as I was working for a wholesale company, and we did the ERP system with e-commerce and also with mobile devices integrated with JBoss, and this worked very well.
I remember I was also in Switzerland, and they built an ERP system on a lake. This was in the mountains. It's also middle and nowhere. So I also tried to help them with REST back then. They hired me to, get rid of SOAP and replace it with REST, and it was exactly as Java 6 started. So this was this was also in Switzerland, the timeline. Okay, cool. And then for 12 years, you are a freelancer right now?
Yeah, exactly.
And what you are doing? So what was your gigs you can talk about? I know it's a little bit harder now because it's lots of NDAs, but is this anything you can share with us? All the, your journey from what your technologies are, what you're doing actually the last 12 years?
Yeah, I did a lot of stuff. So I did some JBoss performance optimization stuff with the various clients. But I also did application programming. So the biggest project that I had was for this wholesale company because they merged with a wholesale delivery company. So we had to integrate all the delivery stuff like transportation, logistics into the existing ERP system. And this ERP system was Java E based on JBoss. We had Camel for... we had around 100 interfaces to suppliers.
What was the added value of Camel? So why you use Camel? So what was the killer use case? Why you decided to use Camel?
Because we had exactly this enterprise application integration pattern. So we really had like a file input. We had to transform it to another format. We had to maybe execute some validation logic on the data, and then we had to send it elsewhere. So we had the Camel stuff in front of the JBoss. Means we get like an order from a customer, and this order was in EDI. EDI is the standard format from the United Nations for exchanging data in commerce. So
EDI, yes.
You know it?
Yeah. EDI, right, yeah. There was EDI and EDFACT or something.
Exactly,
yeah.
And this is a it's a complicated format, very special. And we transformed it in an in-house XML file or file structure. And this gets usually transferred over an ActiveMQ queue to JBoss. And there we had a message in Bean that was accepting the input and then doing some business logic to store it in the database.
And was the project successful? You enjoyed that?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. And it was really successful.
There was no Spring involved then?
No Spring. Okay. No, absolutely not. It was pure Java E. We also did try to avoid any external libraries as far as we know. So we had Camel, we had Java E pure. We had Eclipse RCP in the front
end. Then how big was the war and how fast did it start? Roughly.
That's a good question. I would say the war file was around, it was very small. It was big because we had prime phases.
Yeah, exactly.
We had ASF, and this was a bit, if we subtract the prime phases, it was maybe 10 megabyte.
Okay. And how fast did it start the entire application on your machine?
I would say half a minute.
Still a lot, but it's okay.
Yeah, it's maybe because we had a lot of EJBs. We had EJB-remoting that had to be registered. We had message-driven beans. So that maybe that what took the startup costs. And we had a lot of database tables and a lot of Hibernate mapping.
What I noticed recently, so I implemented something with microprofile in OpenLiberty. And then I needed, some libraries from Jakarta E, and I said, okay, then just activate the entire profile, Jakarta E8 profile. And then the performance the startup performance really broke down. It was really slow. And I tried to investigated that. And what turned out is, if they activated Java 8, they had to activate Corba, which was not bad. But Corba requires SSL. And then they had to generate the SSL keys. And this was the reason why it was so slow. So, and I try now to deactivate the entire SSL because everything else didn't matter. So, but just the SSL key generation was so slow. So I had to wait additional 3 seconds, which is a lot because usually it starts in 1.5 seconds. And now it was now 3 seconds longer, which is too long if you have lots of iterations. So this was my short story recently, No, recently, I think I did the investigation last year, but okay, this is what you built? You built it alone? No, with team, right?
No, we were 8 people in that team.
And everyone was more or less happy?
Yes, I think. We also tried that everyone can do everything. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have like front-end, back-end developer or integration developer. We had one guy that was really was into this interface stuff. He liked to work with COBOL, and he was our expert in that. Mm-hmm. And we had some other guys. The application, the web shop was built with React. Mm-hmm. And we had 2 React guys but they also could work on the backend. So it wasn't, it was just more because they liked it.
So you use prime faces for back office just, or why you had?
Because the ERP system is 20 years old. Mm-hmm. And when they started, they were using Java E or J2E with JSF when it came out.
Okay.
And so we had some backend stuff. Yes, we had also some operational stuff that was built with JSF because it was much faster than to build a React application. Because
what I did several times with startups, we use prime faces for back office stuff, and we use React or web components just for the pixel perfect front end. So this was my pattern. So I thought you did something similar, building fast CRUD with JSF, and then for user facing or consumer facing application, just using the thing. Okay, so what else you did? So which technology? So JBoss, GlassFish, which is nice.
Yeah, and then I had a longer gig at the University in Bern. Okay. So
professor or what? Are you a professor?
No. Yeah, IT department, because they have a lot of in-house applications. Okay. Well. So they also are connected with the hospital in Bern. So that also belongs to the university, more or less. So we have interfaces with healthcare. We had interfaces with finance, with human resources, and there we built a lot also with COBOL, so like integration logic. Mm-hmm. And there we were using Spring or Spring Boot. Mm-hmm. First, we started with JBoss in 2009. Then I had a short contract there, and we were building a platform based on JBoss and JBoss SOA platform these days. Mm-hmm. So we were working with integration or ESB logic on on the JBoss.
And you were still happy with ESB? No.
Okay. So that got replaced then later on with my second contract for the university. And then we were using Spring Boot with COBOL to replace the integration logic there. So
it was not fault of JBoss that they used ESB, right?
No, exactly not.
And when you started with Spring Boot, when was it?
Very early. It was Spring Boot 1. Maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that.
And what is the experience with Spring Boot back then?
The cool thing was that you don't need anything. So the problem often, let's say with JBoss, you had to configure it. So we had like a JBoss platform. At the university, we didn't have a JBoss per application. We had several JBosses and several applications on these instances.
Ah, okay.
And then you had a bunch of configuration that you had to do. We were building scripts that you can automatically install the system on your developer machine, but it was still a bit fragile. So if someone changes some configuration, didn't work. And the great thing about this self-contained application or like Spring Boot, where you can just start the main method, is that you don't need to install the application. So
then we can argue that the problem of application servers is that they allow to ship more than one application, right?
Exactly.
If this wouldn't be allowed, there would be not a problem, because no one would get the idea to ship multiple wars to one application server.
Yes. And so people were happy with Spring Boot. We started with Docker in the same time, and they built a small Docker cluster with Swarm. I think now they're on Kubernetes, but in the beginning they just had 2 or 3 nodes and Docker Swarm installed, and this worked quite well. Yeah.
And the last 5 years, you stick with Spring Boot, or what you did then?
In the last 5 years, no, I also had JBoss still.
Still? So, JBoss or Whitefly? Yeah. So the JBoss...
no, Whitefly.
Okay.
I mean, the problem is the naming with the Red Hat, because JBoss now is the commercial offer.
Yeah, exactly.
The open source project. And I have both. I have customers that using JBoss EAP, so the commercial one, and I have customers that using the open source Whitefly application server.
Okay, so. And now you're using Spring Boot and Whitefly, both at the same time. Not both at the same time, but different projects, but at the same,
Different projects, yes. Yeah. Currently, I'm working on a project for another ERP system. It's a company that sells an ERP product.
Cool.
This is quite old. I mean, the idea of this ERP system is 35 years old. They started with COBOL as well.
Okay.
Back then in the days. And later on, they moved to Oracle and Oracle Forms. Oracle Apex they're using as well. And now we are building a new front end. We're building a modern front end for the application, but the business logic still remains in the database. So they have stored procedures with most of the business logic.
Okay.
And there we are using, or I'm using Vaadin now.
Oh,
as the front end technology.
Vaadin web components or just Vaadin?
The new one. So Vaadin Flow with web components.
Yeah, but you is still where Java generates, the front end, or you are using web components from JavaScript which talk via REST to the backend?
No, we are using Java on the server.
Okay.
The reason is most of or I would say all of the UI code is generated from the database.
Cool.
So we have the database model, and we have additional database or additional UI related data that allows us to generate the UI.
Which generators are you using to do this?
That's a generator that I built my own now for the last year.
With Velocity or FreeMarker or what?
No, just plain Vaadin.
No, but a generator. I mean, how you generate, you have to, set up the templates. So how you do this?
The templates are described in a database model.
Yeah.
And I'm reading the database model and generating Vaadin code.
Yeah. But to generate the Vaadin code, you don't use a template language. You just concatenating strings.
No, not strings, because it's Java code. You write your application like Swing.
So what are you generating? But you're generating Java code or are you generating Java bytecode?
No, I'm not generating. I'm generating. Generating is maybe the wrong word. I'm building the front end based on the database data. So I'm reading the database. I got a tree from the database. The top level element is a module, and the module may have panels, and on the panels are text fields and buttons and stuff like that. And I'm reading that, and I'm building. So I'm starting building a panel. I'm adding text fields and buttons and stuff like that.
At runtime.
At runtime.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So this is in JavaScript would be like I would fetch from the backend the metadata, and then at runtime DOM trees to have the applications, right? And you're doing this on the server side, and Vaadin creates the DOM manipulations for you.
Yeah.
So you're using the metadata or reflection capabilities from Vaadin, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, this is cool. It's a fun project.
Yeah, it's fun. And Vaadin is quite good. I mean, I knew Vaadin in the old version when it uses GWT. And I didn't like that approach because it generates JavaScript code from the Java classes, and it didn't work very well. But now with the new model, all the components in the front end are web components.
Yes.
And they're transmitting some JavaScript JSON data structure that are then used to generate the UI on the front end.
Yeah.
And because of the programming model on the back end, it's very easy for a Java developer to build an application. And I mean, it's the same as you said before. You were using JSF for the backend systems. And at the end, we are creating kind of a backend system. We don't need the fancy, very interaction-based front end where we would need to use JavaScript. We have like ERP systems. So we are the clients are manipulating data from the customers, from the products and stuff. It's a very easy UI. It's a data-heavy UI. We have a lot of fields, a lot of database tables, but we don't have a lot of dynamic stuff on the front end.
I use lots of Vaadin recently, but just the Vaadin components, like for instance Vaadin router. So this is a nicely built visual web components without the Java part. And on the server side, I don't have Vaadin at all right now, just REST, but this could change in one point of time. I was also in such projects back then, and without Vaadin. And what you did, exactly what you did, we built, default UI for generic default UI at runtime from database using back then Swing and EJBs. And the problem was always that the UI was too consistent. In one point of time, my users wanted to have exceptions. To say, okay, look, at this particular view, it is usually you would map this to a tree, but now I would really like to have a table. And if you have too many exceptions, the whole dynamic reflection UI just breaks. So what I always did before such a project, we have an emergency meeting at the beginning of the project, and I say, look, we will do it, but there are no exceptions. So and then it works. If you introduce too many exceptions, the whole thing will just break. So what is your experience with that?
Yeah, I'm working now for over a year on that project.
Yeah.
And I would say the base framework that I've built was done after 3 months.
Yeah.
And now I'm working on the exception.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, exactly. So
now there are a lot of corner cases. They have a lot of, they were building Oracle forms.
Yeah.
And also there they had a lot of UI logic. A lot of exceptions where they had to display some special dialogue if then the user enters any data. And we are building that as well. What we try to do now is that we build the data that we have for the UI in the database in such a way that maybe in 5-6 years, if they say, no, Vaadin is not the right technology, we want to do exactly the same with another technology, we have all this kind of exception stuff in the metadata in the database.
Very good.
Not a lot of logic in the front end.
What you could actually do would be a fun experiment. You could actually provide a REST interface, right? But the REST interface wouldn't expose the business object rather than the metadata objects. So, panels, metadata, and so forth. And then you could write, a small web components applications which just renders your entire tree directly in the web client. This will work for sure.
This would work, yes.
It would be a nice little project. Okay, cool. The last off-topic question, because what I remember, the last time I was in Bern, I was in the train station and someone brought me to the train station, and this guy was a huge railway fan. Probably he even worked for the railways, I don't know. But he told me something that he was really proud that in Bern at the train station, all trains can depart exactly at the same time. There was something special with it. And I asked him why. And he couldn't explain me why this is so cool. But he was really proud of it that, in one point of time, of all the, not gates. There's not gates. The tracks. All the trains can depart exactly now at the same time. It's like, this is truly cool, but why, right? You know something about that?
I don't know. The point is maybe in Bern you have 4 lines where you can go to, and maybe there are enough of tracks to start all the trains at the same time. That's possible.
But he was really excited about that, and I asked you, okay, but why you are doing this? And there was no explanation. So I was like, okay, then I will wait. I will ask someone else. So I thought you are the right guy, Okay, perfect. Thank you. Where people can find you, your company, or if you don't have company, at least you as a freelancer in the internets.
I have a company. It's called 72 Services.
Okay.
You find me on 72.services in the internet.
Okay.
You can find me on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And also on the 72 Services page, I have a blog where I try to write from time to time some interesting blog posts. But, I'm lazy. I don't really like to write too much.
Yeah.
So it's rarely to do that. I'm talking at Java user groups, for example. You will have your talk this week, next week?
This week, I think. This week, this week for sure.
This week. I will have one next week on 1st of July.
Cool.
This will be online. And we'll talk about Vaadin.
Okay, then I will promote your talk.
Current project. And I'm also doing workshop days. Are you on the workshop days in
Are they online? I forgot to submit something this year.
No, they're not online. I don't know if they will be online, but currently they will not be online.
Will they take place? That is incredible. Because, with the pandemic, this is almost mission impossible, but something in September will take place, actually.
No, in Switzerland, we are quite open. We can have, events up to 30 people now.
Okay.
Without any restrictions. We are not that restrictive as you are in Germany.
Okay.
We don't have to wear mask, for example. So it's a bit strange. It's a strange feeling, but we are more open than other countries in Europe.
Okay.
So I think it will take place. Yeah.
Okay. Then thank you. And what I really would like to do to re-invite you back and talk about, for instance, ORMs or Vaadin or both. Just do ORM first and then Vaadin, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Then thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.